Ну даже просто по задумке это Эх. Бля, не, ну это очень хорошо, ну камон, ну это прям, это пипец.
Я вот подписался на Заквиель Стримс, и я крутой. Проверь, а подписан ли ты на самый лучший канал с нарезками, а?
3 недели назад? Вот это что ли? Я не видел этого сам, стоп.
I'm upgrading everything in Minecraft to make the ultimate survival world.
1100
For
часов.
this crazy project, I've made a survival island made up of 16 million blocks.
Так, ну-ка.
Exclusive character cosmetics. So, first things first, we've got to remove the original darkwood trees to make way for our brand new forest.
Это прям финальное, правильно понимаю?
You can see, I really wanted to upgrade the scale of these trees dramatically to create a spooky and dense forest, like something from a fairy tale. The default darkwood trees aren't a crazy spectacle, but they do have a large trunk, which is why I opted for such a massive scale, so that when you stand at the foot of them, you really are rather dwarfed in comparison. Because I'm building this world and making it survival friendly,
Я бы ускорил
I had
немножко,
to
да,
ensure
видос,
that
вы не
the trees
против?
had enough branches to stop the leaves from decaying once placed and looking like a big old broccoli. I
Именно
ended up
посмотреть,
placing
что
4 different trees,
получается.
making sure that they had enough variation in height and shape to avoid a repetitive looking forest. I tried decorating the branches with hanging vines, but I removed them as I didn't want these trees to be too similar to our jungle trees once we upgrade them. I thought it would make sense to create a few little man-made bridges to connect the plains
Реки,
biome to the
мосты.
darkwood at different ends of the biome. Perhaps this was built by the villagers to aid in traveling across to trade in each other's biome. Okay, it's time for some major changes. I really wanted to add a bit of variation to the landscape, especially
А как вот это делается? Это Word Edit такой идет, нихуя себе. Вы чего?
the villagers to aid
Вы
in
видели?
traveling across to trade in each other's
Как он
biome.
сделал огромную гору, what the fuck? Вот сейчас, смотри, вот сейчас.
Okay, it's time for some
Во, что это было? How? Во. What the fuck?
major changes. I really wanted
Что это? Это Word Edit? Нифига себе.
to add a bit of variation to the landscape,
типа
especially
реки.
around the main village, as the biome previously felt
Офигеть, ладно, имба.
way too flat. So I quite literally repositioned and pasted an entire mountainscape. Then to add
это
further
каньон,
variation
типа, да?
in
Или это
terrain
нет, это глубокая
height,
река?
I
Нет, это
cut a
каньон.
major crevice throughout the entire biome for the river to
Еще есть еще World Painter для изменения биомов, офигеть.
flow through and connect it to the large lake at the center of the island. This alone took a fair amount of time, even though I haven't taken things to the craziest scale like some of my other projects.
Да,
Because
эти
this
моды
is a
имба.
survival world after all. With that done, I started layering the landscape up the side of this hill to create a tiered effect, as this will be the foundations for our new village. As you can see, I dug out a few roots for some rivers and waterfalls, stemming from a
сериал
large
Локи
lake of water
смотрели,
that sits
чувак.
behind the village, encased in some mysterious mountain peaks. I then tidied things with darkwood trees that we just made and gradually fill out the forest. I also included a branching off pathway and bridge to the right of where our new village would be, then continued placing in our new gigantic trees and filling up the landscape. Before placing the rest of the trees, I wanted to include a small lake with a monument in the center. Legend says that the most powerful sword in the land was placed here by a mysterious wizard, who claimed that only a worthy adventurer would be able to retrieve
типа
it.
небольшой такой,
Can you guess what
прикольно.
this story was
Алтарик.
inspired by? Now we've got to fill out the remaining half of the biome to finish our dense darkwood
Блин, тоже
forest.
деревья все
Honestly,
чуть-чуть
if you
разные, то есть это какой-то датапак, скорее всего, делают, да? На генерацию рандомного дерева, окей.
play this in survival, then I
Нахер он
can
вначале
guarantee
вручную
you'll
так
never
строил, если
run
есть
out of
датапак?
wood supply. You could build an entire kingdom from chopping down even just one of these trees. But before moving on, we've got to fill this forest with some shrubbery and rock
он накидывает,
clusters.
потом
Also, I'm
копирует,
not
всё,
really sure
понял.
why, but my Minecraft skin has decided to just disappear throughout the video. So apparently, Minecraft Steve is going to be helping me build.
Да, он делает типа такие
Placing
участки,
our
потом просто
custom
их
bushes
копирует,
and
вставляет
rocks around
камешки и все
really
такое.
filled up the forest floor, making it much more dense and like an overgrown woodland. These decorations literally cover the entire biome, so you won't want to stray too far from the pathway, otherwise you might just get lost. As I mentioned, this video alone has taken about 100 hours. So if you want me to transform the next biome and eventually get the completed world download for yourself via Patreon, then you've got to get this video
Валик,
to
что ты делаешь? Успокойся.
250,000 likes.
Зачем
I've
ты
had to
мучишь
bump
людей?
it up
Они
quite
же
a bit
шутят,
since the last
успокойся.
episode because you guys keep hitting the like goal within a few hours. Now, since the main pathway weaves throughout the forest, I whipped up a few small man-made bridges to cross the crevice and allow access between each section of the biome. As for the main entrance to the village, I tweaked the landscape and then built a diagonal bridge, matching the style from the previous
Пока что
bridge
это куда
designs.
менее интересный эпизод, чем второй, кстати говоря, потому что во втором он именно постройки делал. А, вот, сейчас дальше будет, ладно.
Finally, I added some more small bridges to cross the rivers and waterfalls, and connected up the pathway that winds throughout our future village. Starting with the first of our profession-based buildings for the Darkwood village, the Cleric. Or, I suppose in this case, the rabbi. Now, as I've mentioned in
Это
previous
для клирика.
episodes, I plan to change things
Плюс
up for the
храм.
village church and build different places of worship in different biomes. So far, we've built a church in the plains biome, a mosque in the desert, and for the dark wood, I wanted to build a synagogue. The synagogue is a Jewish, but it can also double up as a place to study and a community center as well. Now, after researching into the architecture of a typical synagogue, I discovered that
Не
they're not
обязательно
really
как отдельную
limited
постройку, а
to
в
a
деревне, в
particular
смысле,
style
с
or
таким
shape.
логотипом.
They vary in
Клевая
design
отсылка,
quite
не?
a lot. However, the most notable features I found from reference images of real-life synagogues were large circular windows sandwiched between two towers with bulb-like roofs. Now remember that this is meant to be my own take on this style of religious building, and is in no way meant to be an accurate representation of a real synagogue. I plan to continue making alternative places of worship in other biomes.
Сериал от Marvel, мультсериал мы не будем смотреть. Всего одна, А, там две уже вышло, две. Ну, две мало все равно, блин. Я уже миллион раз говорю, хотя бы 5 выйдет, посмотрим. Да, для клирика, конечно, жирновато, согласен, но ебать. Нормально.
So I had to do some tweaking to the landscape in order to position it at the highest tier of the village. Our second profession-based building is for the cartographer. I settled on a roof fantasy style for this building, which is going to loosely persist throughout the remainder of the village. I'm aware that a Darkwood village doesn't actually exist in-game. However, as I've mentioned previously, I intend to make custom villages even for biomes that don't spawn their own
Ну такое, просто обычный дом.
Because the cartographer lives here, I had to include a separate lookout tower that connects to the side of the building.
Типа он сделал смотровую башню, то есть все, ну такое. Кузнец. Ну тоже просто сделал более симпатичным. Получилось хорошо. Ну картограф это телескоп логичный, не? Какой-нибудь.
With the weaponsmith complete, of course, I had to accompany it with an armorer. I decided on an entirely new design for this building, and I made a start on it by working on a diagonal axis. You can see the vanilla armorer building to the right, which I used as a reference. The only notable difference the armorer building has to the regular village buildings is a chimney stack. But I wanted to include a turret tower into this building design, as I felt that it suited the armorer profession. With the main profession buildings complete, I placed them at different levels across the village. As for filling up the remaining space, I used red wool.
И как же охуенно смотрится, что это на разных уровнях скал. Уф.
Guideline to position and place down the remaining village houses.
Имба.
So from the red wool, I started building up individual village houses on loads of different angles.
Астроном это логично. Майнкрафт нет астронома.
Village houses and technically transform them is because it's going to be pretty much impossible to do that, especially when I'm challenging myself to build most of these houses on a diagonal. This also means I'm building
Он еще почти все диагонально построил.
Limiting my use of world edit to duplicate buildings, avoiding repetition and creating a more immersive environment for you guys to explore. Now remember, each of these buildings may be small, but they're also all fully furnished and have usable interiors, meaning this process took plenty of time. This village ended up being rather large and jam-packed with houses, which was the ultimate goal. As I stated earlier, the aim for this entire biome was to make things much larger than its vanilla predecessor. Since Mojang didn't create a Darkwood village, I had to do it justice and do something a little more wild.
Netflix, Warner Brothers вообще прям точно запрещены.
Hours of working and really going all out. This project is really helping me to show you guys
Disney
what I can build in different styles on a smaller scale than my usual projects, with some individual megastructures to tackle, as well as densely packed villages. I have so many more projects planned, and I cannot wait to show you guys my full building potential. Now, to add even more variation to the village and to enhance that fantasy theme, I included some hobbit houses embedded in the different layers of terrain. I built the original hobbit house normally and had to include a few diagonal variants along the final top layer of the village. Even though I didn't plan to include a farmer profession in this biome, I thought that it would fit nicely in one of these flat spaces I created. Plus, I couldn't leave all these villagers going hungry, so I quickly whipped up a crop farm. To bring our little custom village to life, I redesigned a few small decorations, including a cart, a small flower bed, a lantern, a bell, and a well to scatter around the village. With the decorations complete, I placed them around the village to add that finishing touch. Things are really looking lively now, but I'm not quite finished with this area
не, ну это
yet.
очень хорошо, ну камон, ну это прям, это пипец. Смотри.
I'm not quite finished with this area yet. The hidden lake behind the village
О,
has
скрытое
a
озеро
a
за
crazy
деревней.
old wizard lives there. Now, if you were listening closely, you may have picked up that this wizard is the one who placed the legendary sword in the Darkwood Forest for a worthy adventurer to retrieve. But he actually
вон, тут рассказывает, короче, он говорил во второй или первой серии, что он планирует у этой карты, чтобы была история. И это вроде башни какого-то мага, который спрятал там какой-то меч или что-то такое.
Story as well. He spends his days trying to unravel the mysteries of the ultimate survival world. The cursed treasure of the evil pharaoh.
О, а вот это он строил в прошлой серии, кстати говоря. Это обычный храм, типа он трансформировал в чуть более крутой храм. Вот. Ой, бля.
But he actually feeds a lot more into the backstory as well. He spends his days trying to unravel the mysteries of the ultimate survival world. The cursed treasure of the evil pharaoh from the desert, the eerie beach shipwreck, the peculiar coven of witches in the mushroom and swamp biome, the bizarre disappearance of the wealthy family who lived in the nearby woodland mansion, and much, much more. Perhaps this kooky old guy has discovered something more about this surreal island and its secrets, not to mention the legendary fabled treasure. As you can see, I went for a traditional wizard tower vibe, sticking with the materials that match the rest of our Darkwood forest. To make this tower a little more wacky and puzzling, I added plenty of smaller roofs into the main tower, as well as a larger outcrop at the bottom, which I later on decided to tweak slightly so that it felt better connected to the rest of the building.
И дом знахаря еще сделаем, кстати. Ой, ну шейдеры такие все, ладно. Слишком все белое, мутное, ладно.
And finally, we're moving on to the Woodland Mansion, which literally could have been its own video. Now, you may have seen some of my mega transformations of Minecraft's in-game structures, but I haven't.
Блин, ну тут посмотрим, что получится. Woodland Mansion в Майнкрафте довольно уродский, ну, дефолтный.
The Woodland Mansion here. For my mega transformations, I scaled things up massively. But to keep things authentic and true to survival Minecraft, I decided not to scale things up for this one. Perhaps if you guys want to see it, I'll do a mega transformation of the Woodland Mansion even crazier than this one. But for now, let's focus on this upgrade, which is still huge. So as you can see, I'm starting with the entrance and really trying to channel a menacing vibe into my building. I've seen a few Woodland Mansion transformations that give off a sort of ski lodge or
чуть-чуть, вообще так, на пару богов,
should look a little bit more intimidating and ominous. For the main entrance, I opted for this grand design, with 3 feature windows at the top and a harshly sloped roof. Even though the original Woodland Mansion's roof is super flat, I thought that I could take that aspect and present it in a different way, with a harshly sloped roof, since it still has a large surface area. To make the front even more grand and imposing, I decided to add towers on either side, but sort of embed them into the main entrance. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely getting those spooky vibes already. Now it's time to tackle the first side of this huge structure. So I started by upgrading each section and added plenty of details while still maintaining some semblance of the original design. I decided to make the corner of the building a little more interesting, with a sort of roof terraced at floor level, and adapted the roof up top to add some more dimension before repositioning things so that the serious building can start. Whilst I get into the nitty-gritty of the building, I should probably give you a little insight into the mystery of this woodland mansion. Once said to be home to a rich family of merchants, this ominous mansion contains many secrets, and maybe even relates to the huge treasure hunt starting at the shipwreck that I built in the last episode. Trading across the vast regions of the ultimate survival world, this family learned many secrets about the island, its history, and its inhabitants. Many attempted to infiltrate the mansion in hopes of uncovering ancient secrets for hidden treasure, and the wizard cast protective enchantments to help keep the family safe. One day, the family mysteriously disappeared without a trace, and the mansion is now said to be home to some far
Странно,
more
а почему у меня не отобразилось?
I wonder if you guys will be able to work out what really
Нигде вроде бы.
Notably, the hardest part of the woodland mansion to tackle is the completely flat roof. However, seeing as we've essentially encapsulated the vanilla structure with the front and sides of the building now complete, we can cut away the center of the mansion to create a classic courtyard. It's very difficult figuring out how to approach this giant cube of a building. However, this definitely felt like the best approach, as it breaks up the design and adds more layers to the building. The idea, of course, is to have overlooking balconies and walkways to make the courtyard feel more airy and open.
Не, у меня ничего не отображается. А, я стрим перезапускал, наверное, поэтому точно, вау.
Making this the largest segment of the building. To add the final feature to perfect the courtyard, I embedded a clock tower, sticking as closely to the original building shape as possible to finish this section off. At the back of the courtyard,
обещал с тобой спать лечь. Нормально.
Which is the largest part of this building. So, I was able to mirror the design to the back of the mansion and then marry it up with the rest of the building. For the remaining corners of this building section, I continue the wall and roof design all the way around.
Ну что сказать, постройка больше не стала, проверяй. Пипец, ну это красиво, ладно, это очень красиво.
As well as including several roofed terraces around the back of the building. Now, with the exterior of our new mansion complete, the surrounding environment needs a little sprucing up so that it matches the new mansion's design. Using large cylinders of sand.
Скрынник, Дима, Скрынник, когда такой замок, алё? Хей, Денис подарил подписку, спасибо большое. 81-я подарочная подписка, кстати говоря, уже, спасибо.
Able to whip up several mountains surrounding the mansion and provide a more interesting and intimidating backdrop. Lastly, I added in the trees, rocks, and shrubbery that we created earlier to finish this section of the Darkwood Forest. Of course, we created that perfect opening in the middle of the mansion for a courtyard, so I decorated it with pathways, bushes, flowers, and a fountain. As a final addition to the mansion, I mixed in different block materials to add texture and wear and tear to the mansion. It is abandoned after all.
Замиксовал еще блоки, да. Дерево.
What about the interior? Well, I dissected the vanilla mansion just to see the different types of rooms that we're going to be dealing with. Of course,
А,
I'm not
он
going to be able to paste the
внутри
whole
это
weight
будет
of the rooms into the
переделать.
mansion and directly transform them. However, I can build an interior that follows the same kind of style to match the vanilla interior, just with larger rooms and much more detail and decoration. As you can see, the current interior of our new mansion is a mostly hollow shell, with the remains of some of the vanilla structure. So, first things first, I had to clear everything out and neaten things up so that I could plan things properly. Using an assortment of colored wool, I mapped out and made plans for the ground level of the mansion.
Чекни описание, там что-то можно скачать. Эта карта, ее, по-моему, можно скачать, но она у него платная, поэтому... Ну, мне эта карта нахуй не нужна, даже бесплатно, я тебе скажу, ну ладно. Прикольно, но зачем она мне? Платить за нее тем более не буду, сорян. Тем более не готовы.
From all three floors of the mansion to balconies with a view all the way down to the bottom floor. As you can see, I added in a bunch of banners to decorate with this stag-like design inspired by MC banners. As for the hallways, the most notable part from the original design is the pillared supports on either side that line the walls down the full length of the hallway. I made sure to add plenty of small decorations which took up the majority.
Ну хотя, кстати, логично, если ее, ну, скорее всего, ее пока нельзя, наверное, скачать, да, не удивлюсь, там пишет, что ее можно будет скачать, когда она фул будет готова, ну да. Было бы странно, если бы он выкладывал ее за платно, тем более не готовую, ну да.
Armor stands and cobwebs to add to that creepy and abandoned vibe that we're going for. I then tackled the second floor, plotting out all the different rooms and decorating the long winding hallway.
Да, конечно, ну просто типа одно дело, когда, допустим, у тебя есть твой survival мир, где ты выживаешь и где ты сам в survival что-то такое построишь, тогда да, красота. А так, зайти на подобную карту и что там делать? Пытаться там выживать, когда уже все постройки готовы, все постройки охуенные. А что тебе тогда делать?
Where I had to plan and decorate again, making sure that I included plenty of chests, which of course means some epic loot for you guys. So, for the first room, I decided this mansion needed a grand kitchen. I added a laundry area, a large cooking area, a classic chequered kitchen floor, and some tables for food prep. I then added some sinks, lighting, chests, towels, well, banners, and a whole lot more to really bring the kitchen to life, as if it was left this way many years ago. Next up is the grand bedroom. We can't have a mansion without a classic
играть и выживать.
I also added a nice big rug, a bookshelf, a little grandfather clock, a wardrobe, and some armor stands. This family's ancestors were famously members of the USW Order of Knights, so they have a pretty sweet collection.
Ну, я такого прикола не понимаю. То есть, ну, мне было бы неинтересно, если скачаю эту готовую карту, да, просто по ней бегать, смотреть постройки, мне, например, было бы максимально неинтересно. Вот. Если скачать ее и какой-то, да, ивент на ней провести, тогда, в принципе, да. Вот, это прикольно. Ты так вдохновляешься для МШ? Честно говоря, по поводу Майнкрафта, это, наверное, чуть ли не первый видос за полгода, который я смотрю по Фемыч. Поэтому нет, не так для МШ я вдохновляюсь. Вот и все. Серьезно. Если посмотреть мою историю просмотра, я про Майнкрафт смотрю только новости Майншилда. Все, наверное. А, ну Дрима еще мы смотрим на стриме, все.
From the cape to keep me going throughout all of this building. Now for a cozy library, perhaps where the merchant family wrote their diary entries. Who knows? But I don't think anyone could read all of those books in one lifetime. Upgrades and the new additions, we have a once cozy lounge and study area, a fully stacked wine cellar for all the families partying, an upgrade of the villager statue room, which just might be linked to the
адского босса, там 6 серий. Какого адского босса?
With chests. As well as these main rooms, there are a bunch of smaller rooms throughout this huge mansion. And who knows? I might have even added a secret.
Так, что-то еще будет? Что-то еще? А, походу все, да?
And last but not least, we have the abandoned zombie village to tackle, which I of course had to
зомби-деревня.
For this area, I adapted some of the Darkwood village buildings so that they looked more ruined and abandoned. If you're wondering why this village has been left like this, it all started many years ago when a plague began to spread.
Сортировку на дельфины смотрели вчера, да, хуй там.
Some survivors fleeing to the Darkwood village, terrified that they might have brought this plague with them. The Darkwood villagers wouldn't allow the survivors to settle there. With nowhere else to go, the outcast surviving villagers fled across the river to the jungle and turned to a life of pillaging. Their story continues in the jungle.
Не знаю, что такое адский босс. Это сериал или что?
But anyway, as you can see, this little fishing village would have been a picturesque little community in its heyday. Maybe as a side quest, you guys could cleanse this village of its plague and restore it to its prime. And last but not least, to finalize our abandoned zombie village and
ой, ну что-то деревья такие сильные. Ладно.
Let's take a look at all of our progress.
Все. Ну вот эта деревня получилась прям, блин, очень крутой. Плюс еще и сзади горы, где есть секретное озеро и вот эта башня мага. Ну даже просто по задумке это Эх. А, это просто какого-то чела? На стриме, говорят, нельзя. Почему? Если это просто какого-то чела. А, это 18+. А, нет, тогда спасибо. Я звук оставил. Там на странице, значит, вот и все. Братан, елки-моталки. Это же первый раз в интернете, первый раз видос какой-то смотришь. Ой.
As you can see, this video has taken a lot of time and hard work. Which biome should I do next?
Все, так, короче.